Good morning, everyone. This is Joe coming to you from home, and it's cold outside, so I wanted to make another video while I'm waiting on my starter to come in to go ahead and test the coils again. And I can now, I know where my confusion was coming from. Is because I had assumed that since the coils had their own power supply, they each have what's called a BW wire. That's a black and white wire. And I had assumed that their corresponding yellow wire with the blue stripe would both be ground, which technically they are, but that's controlled by the computer. And if you guys recall, when with the key on, I was testing circuit the coil pack on the right side, which I now know controls cylinders 1 and 2. And I noticed that one was getting 12 volts just with the key on and not even rotating the motor, but I got confused because the two wires on the left side, one being the BW and the other one being the what's called the BI-Y wire, or yellow wire, that would only show 12 volts whenever the engine started to rotate. So I understand that whole concept now. So anyways, I know now that when you're testing for power output, you just use the BW wire for the right and the left side, and then you ground it to the battery or to the frame, and then of course I did that and I got 12 volts. Okay, so this is a simple little map thing that I drew, so it's nothing fancy. Here's the right coil and here's the left coil. So the BW wires go here and here, and then each corresponding yellow and blue striped wire goes here and here. And this was the circuit that I noticed that whenever you turn the key on, whether the motor's rotating or not, it was still getting 12 voltage, or 12 volts if you measured this and this. But I realized that was wrong anyways. It's supposed to be measuring the BW wire to the chassis ground or to the battery. But anyways, so this is the firing order. So you got cylinders 1, which is controlled by the right coil, which also controls cylinder number 2. And then cylinder 3 is controlled by the left coil, and then cylinder 4. 1 and 2 were the ones that I was having misfire issues, so I'm going to basically conduct a full test, ohms test of the left and right, or primary and secondary coils. So here we go with that. Okay, so I set this up, and the first thing we're going to check is for ohms resistance, and I'm going to put it on the 20K setting. I believe that's right, or it might be the 200 setting. But anyways, we're going to check the primary and secondary circuits using the book, and according to the schematic, I'm using the book as my prop for the meter so that you guys can see, but it's supposed to be 5 ohms. Let me verify that real quick. Its primary resistance should be 2.7 plus or minus. Okay, now we're going to test the circuits, and again, remember the book says that the primary resistance should be 2.7 ohms plus or minus 0.3. So the first thing we're going to do is check my meter to see what if it's zeroed out or not. And unfortunately on this one you can't zero it out, with some sort of automatic button. So you can see initially I'm getting about 0.4 ohms just by touching the wires together, so I need to do some math. So I need to subtract 0.4 from whatever reading that I get from here, and that'll be my actual reading. So we're going to test the right coil, which is this one right here, and that controls cylinders 1 and 2. So I'm touching both leads, and we're going to check the coil resistance. And I am getting a reading of basically 3.0. Okay, so we're going to write that down for the right coil, 3.0. And now I'm going to check the left coil, which is this one right here. And my final reading, once it stabilizes, is 3.1. So I'm getting 3.1 for the left coil. Now, doing some basic math, because you remember my meter is not exactly calibrated well, so we have to subtract 0.4. So the right coil, I was reading 3.0 ohms, so we'll subtract 0.4 from that. So on that one, it comes to 2.6. So again, the limit is 2.7 plus or minus 0.3. So the actual reading for the right coil is 2.6 ohms. So that coil, this one right here, is good. On the second coil, we got a reading of 3.1, and I got to subtract 0.4 because of my lack of calibration for this particular meter. And that result is 2.7. So the left one is dead on. We got exactly 2.7 ohms on this left coil, and 2.6 ohms, which it did fluctuate by 0.1 ohm, and that probably would have put me at 2.7. So anyways, these two coils are good, at least from the ohms perspective. Now, I have been told that even if you do a resistance check on your coils, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work. That it's going to work. We'll just have to see. But let's go ahead and press on with the ohms test with the wires and end caps installed. Okay, so the next step is to measure the secondary coil resistance with the spark plug caps and wires connected to the coil, and I should get 24 ohms plus or minus 3.9. So again, we're looking for 24 ohms plus or minus 3.9. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is I'm zeroing out my meter, and as you can see, it's pretty calibrated right now for some reason, don't know why. And what we're going to check is the total resistance on each coil with the wires and end caps installed. According to the book, I should get 24 ohms plus or minus 3.9. So first I'm going to check the left coil, and that will be these with these two end caps on. And I'm going to insert the probes into the end caps and see what we get. Kind of hard to do this by yourself. Okay, so letting it stabilize, I am getting 24.3 ohms. So I'm going to write that down for the left coil. 24.3 ohms. Now we're going to check the right coil with the two caps. And you can see, hold on, let it stabilize, 23.1 ohms for the right coil. 0.1. Now I'm going to check the calibration of my meter again, just to see if it's, okay, that shows zeroed out, so we're almost pretty much dead on. So this is checking good right there. Alright, so the book says it has to be 24 ohms plus or minus 3.9. So the first reading we got for the left coil was 24.3 ohms. Well, that one's dead on then, pretty close to dead on, so we're going to call that one good. So we know the left coil is good, and that's with the wires and end caps installed. The right coil measured 23.1, so that's a little less, but we're still within the specific parameters because it's the maximum minimum limits is plus or minus 3.9. So again, we're good. And because my meter was pretty much zeroed out that particular test, I don't have to worry about doing any subtraction. So once again, with the wires completely installed on the coil packs, we know that it's good. Okay, this is a test that I think everybody on the forum was kind of concerned about because they thought I was obviously doing it wrong. And so what we're testing is power output to the black and white wires. That's a black wire with a white stripe for the right coil and the left coil individually. So here is the right wires here's the black and white wire for the right coil, and that's the black and white wire to the left coil. This yellow one with the blue stripe, the same as there, which is a blue wire with the yellow stripe, those are for spark control, and that's controlled, I believe, by the computer or the ignition unit. Some say that this bike does not have a pulse generator. I don't know about all that yet because that's just something else. So I know the pulse generator in the older bikes, assuming this one doesn't have one, is what controls the spark delivery, and that's done by the blue wire with the yellow stripe and the yellow wire with the blue stripe. So anyways, this step says measure cranking voltage, connect DC voltmeter lead to ignition coil on BW wire, which I did for the right coil, and then to the ground, and I should get 9 volts or above. So, as you can see, I have the key on, and I have the BW wire to the right coil, and I'm going to ground it out to the frame somewhere, or I'll just use the battery. And the results is I'm getting 11.39 volts, so that one's good. Okay, now I have the power lead, or the ohm meter lead, the red one, connected to the black and white wire for the left coil. And again, the key is on, and I will ground it out again and see if we get at least 9 volts. And as you can see, I'm getting 11.37 volts for the left coil. So we know that the power supply to the left and right coils is working. My mistake was I was, instead of grounding it to the battery of the frame, which somebody tried to tell me and I just wasn't listening, I was trying to use the yellow and blue wires and then the blue and yellow wire. That would work, but of course the engine would have to be rotating. But what I did notice is that whenever I checked the right circuit, I would get 12 volts. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that right now. Okay, see how I done before? With the key on, I have the right lead connected to the black and white wire, or black and yellow wire to the right coil, and I'm using the yellow and blue stripe wire as my ground. And with just with the key on, I'm getting 10 volts. And then so I said, okay, well maybe you're supposed to check the other side for the same thing. So I did that, and watch what happens. Okay, so now as you can see, I have the right lead connected to the black and white, yellow wire for the left coil, and then I have it connected to the blue wire with the yellow stripe on the left coil as well. And where I was getting confused at is I was like, I'm not getting any voltage and I have the key on. Well, that's because the motor has to rotate. But if I were to switch this one out to the yellow wire with the blue stripe, that would be an actual ground. This other wire is not grounded out right now. It's because it's not in the rotation, or not in the. If I was to engage the starter, watch what happens. Well, my starter's not working, but you can see as soon as I push the button, I was getting voltage. But that's just because the motor's not rotating and my starter's bad. So, anyways, I'm sure if I was to rotate the motor by hand, I would get voltage. But regardless, this test is pointless. You know, I don't even think this test is in the book. Actually, it does say right here, measure voltage drop at coil. Connect meter to coil primary terminals. So the positive part of the lead would go to the B&W wire, and the other one would go to the negative terminal. And see, I did that wrong, thinking that that's what this meant. But actually what it's saying is the red lead would be right, but I would take the black lead and ground it out to the frame and try to start the engine, and I would look for no more than a 1 volt fluctuation during start attempt. So with the starter bad, let's try it, okay? Okay, so I'm doing the left coil first. I have the red lead on the black and yellow wire, the BW wire, which is the hot one, and I have the other lead connected to the ground. So the book says to check for voltage and no more than 1 volt drop or 1 volt fluctuation whenever I push the start button. So you see we're at 11.44 volts. Now my starter's not working, but we'll see if it changes anyways. See, it dropped. Lit off, goes back up. That's what it started on. It drops, goes back up. So technically, this would be good, provided that my starter. So we'll have to wait until the starter comes in before I can actually do that. So anyhow, that's how you test for this one. And then of course you would switch out to the other black and white wire and do the same test. So anyways, all of these tests that I've accomplished are good. Everything is checking out great. So I think what was causing the misfire issue was the fact that my end caps didn't have good connection to the wires itself. So I think that's going to solve the problem. We'll know more once I get my starter in this weekend. For now, you guys can agree or disagree, and it's up to you. You know, I welcome your inputs, and I'll take any constructive criticism that you have. For now, I'm going to call the ignition system good. But if I'm still not getting a spark, then more than likely it might be the ignition unit. That's something I didn't consider. It might very well be that, or the pulse generator, assuming this bike has one. But I'll have to check because I don't even know if this one has one or not. I believe it's supposed to be on the left side, but or somewhere. But I know the connector is supposed to be right here. But see, mine doesn't have it, so I think it was removed. But anyhow, guys, that's where I'm at right now. I really apologize for the confusion. I think it's because of the differences in the models that's what confused me. But anyhow, you guys have a great day. Take care of yourself. I look forward to hearing any feedback you guys have, and feel free to comment. So long.